A single thread trembles above the sleeping city, swaying gently between rooftops as if New York itself is waiting, holding its breath for someone to step into their destiny. And tonight, I'd like to take your hand and guide you there, whether you're lying in bed or simply resting in the soft glow of midnight. Let this quiet moment open a small doorway into the world that shaped one of humanity's most enduring symbols, Spider-Man. Breathe slowly, let the city settle around you, and drift with me into its hidden stories. If you enjoy these journeys, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell me where you're listening from, what time it is, and the topics you'd love to explore. Your thoughts may guide our next adventure. The world of Spider-Man begins not with a single moment, but with a delicate balance, one woven between science and something older, deeper, almost mythic. It lies in that quiet intersection where the atomic age meets ancient instinct, where human invention brushes against the shadows of totemic destiny. In this universe, New York is not simply a city, it is a stage, a breathing organism whose lights pulse like the arteries of fate itself. Every alleyway, every fire escape, every trembling rooftop becomes a thread in a grand tapestry of power, guilt, choice, and consequence. And at the center of that tapestry stands a truth in this world. Even the smallest action can tilt at the axis of destiny. A single moment of hesitation, a single decision made in anger or fear, a single kindness offered when no one is watching. Everything echoes, everything returns. This is the rule that shapes Spider-Man's universe, the law of cause and effect drawn, not by cosmic forces, but by the weight of human conscience. The Parker luck whispered through decades of stories is not merely misfortune, it is the universe's way of keeping balance. For every victory that Spider-Man earns, something in Peter Parker's life quietly erodes. A job lost, a relationship strained, a piece of normalcy slipping through his fingers like dust. Even with all his abilities, he remains profoundly human, bounded by the same limitations, fears, and fragile emotions as those he protects. That tension between power and humanity is the heartbeat of this world. But beneath the city and beneath the science, there is another layer, an older architecture known as the web of life and destiny. Picture an infinite network stretching across the multiverse, shimmering like threads of light. Each strand represents a world. Each knot is a spider person, and somewhere deep within this cosmic lattice sits the master weaver, tending the structure, adjusting the tension, ensuring the network does not unravel. Here the spider totem is not a myth, but a guiding principle, an unseen current that chooses its avatars. Those who carry the spider essence are not chosen at random. They are drawn into a role that demands vigilance, intuition, and sacrifice. And for every spider person who rises, a predator stirs in response. The inheritors, ancient, ravenous beings who feed upon the life force of totems, are the universe's brutal method of system correction. Their existence reminds every spider person that their role is not just heroic, it is essential. The core philosophy of this world can be traced back to a single sentence: with great power comes great responsibility. But in the quiet spaces of narration, we can admit what the stories rarely say aloud. This is not a moral slogan. It is a warning, a reminder that power isolates, burdens, and transforms. Spider-Man represents the eternal struggle between the human self and the primal instinct beneath it, the boy and the spider forever intertwined. And so the world of Spider-Man is not defined by battles or villains. It thrives in the tension between responsibility and selfhood, between destiny and choice. It is the story of an ordinary person asked to bear an extraordinary weight and choosing every day to carry it. The first thing you must understand about Spider-Man's world is that New York is not merely a location on a map. It breathes, it remembers, it reacts. In this universe, the city is less like a backdrop and more like a living artery, pulsing with noise, light, and emotion, shaping Peter Parker as much as he shapes it. Every corner of Manhattan seems to hold a fragment of his story, and if you wander through it quietly enough, you can almost feel the weight of his footsteps lingering in the rain. New York's narrow alleys, with their old brick walls and rusted fire escapes, carry both loneliness and hope in equal measure. Here, Peter learned what it means to fear for others, what it means to face a darkness that no one else sees. These alleys taught him responsibility long before he ever understood the word, and in the quiet hours of the night, when the city settles into its steady mechanical heartbeat, those same alleys whisper to him, reminding him why he keeps returning night after night. Every rooftop in New York becomes a launching pad for Spider-Man, a thin ledge between the ordinary life of Peter Parker and the extraordinary burden he carries. When he rises into the air, swinging on threads of silver across the skyline, it often feels as though the city itself lifts him, giving him the height he needs to see the world clearly. Roads blur beneath him, windows become rivers of yellow light, and for a fleeting moment, he moves freely, suspended above the very world that demands so much of him. The city reflects him. When Spider-Man leaps past towering glass buildings, he often catches his own silhouette rippling across the windows, sometimes heroic, sometimes small, and almost lost. Those reflections are reminders of the dual lives he cannot separate, the protector the world sees, and the young man hiding behind the mask, struggling quietly with the consequences of doing what is right. Rain in New York carries its own stories. For Peter, it is the sound of memory, the soft rhythmic tapping that brings back faces he loved and voices he can no longer hear. Uncle Ben's lesson about responsibility, Gwen's gentle smile before everything shattered. The rain pulls these ghosts to the surface, urging him to keep moving, to keep choosing the harder path, even when he feels like he has nothing left to give. Even the city's noise forms a language Spider-Man has learned to interpret. The hum of traffic, the sudden rise in sirens, the distant echo of someone crying for help. Together they create a living alert system. New York becomes an extension of his own instincts, a web of sound and movement that guides him almost like a sixth sense. This is why Spider-Man belongs to New York in a way no other hero does. He doesn't protect the city from the outside. He was shaped by it, carved by it, raised by it. New York is not his territory. It is his origin. It is the place that forged both his suffering and his strength, the one place that understands the delicate balance within him, the boy, the burden, and the mask. If New York is the heartbeat of Spider-Man's story, then the Spider-Verse is its vast cosmic mind, an endless network stretching across realities like an infinite web of shimmering threads. Each strand trembles with the life of a world. Each knot in the structure pulses with the presence of a spider person. And though these worlds may never touch physically, they resonate together like distant stars humming in harmony across the void. This multiverse does not simply exist, it moves. Every reality in the Spider-Verse is a living cell within a larger organism known as the web of life and destiny. When one cell is disturbed, when a spider person falls, or a timeline fractures, or a destiny is rewritten, the entire web reacts. The vibration spreads outward, brushing against distant universes like ripples traveling across a silent pond. Somewhere, on a rooftop in another world, another spider person may pause for just a second, sensing a shift they cannot explain, a whisper of danger, a tremor of loss, a faint echo of someone like them slipping away. Each dimension in this tapestry carries its own mood, its own worldview, its own aesthetic language. In the noir universe, shadows rule everything. Rain falls in sheets over streets lit by crooked neon signs, and Spider-Man becomes a creature of trench coats, whispered threats, and moral ambiguity. He is the shadow that hunts the shadows. In the anime universe, motion is expression, fluid, exaggerated, full of heart. Here, battles feel like dances, and emotions flare like bright colors across the sky. The spider person moves with a certain poetry, every leap an exclamation, every pose a declaration of passion. In the cyberpunk universe, electric purple light runs through steel towers and tangled circuitry. This world is a metallic labyrinth, part city, part machine. Its spider person navigates glowing data streams, swinging between holograms and fiber optic nerves, fighting not only criminals, but corrupted code itself. And in the 2099 universe, the future lies cracked but defiant. Technology overpowers nature. Corporations rule and identity becomes a blurred boundary. Here, Spider-Man is sharper, more dangerous, forged by a society that has forgotten what it means to be human. Despite these differences, despite their cultures, their physics, even their histories, every spider person shares the same essential core: the instinct to sacrifice, the urge to protect, the willingness to stand on the edge of a rooftop and jump simply because no one else can. This shared essence is what allows the web of life to link them. Across impossible distances, they sense one another not through words, but through resonance, like tuning forks vibrating in unison. And the Spider-Verse, for all its wonder, maintains a delicate equilibrium. When one spider person falls, another rises. When a thread snaps, the web silently draws a new strand into place. Balance is not optional. It is the law. And though traveling between these worlds is possible, it comes at a cost. Every journey drains a bit of the spider totem's energy, reminding even the mightiest spider person that fate is not a toy, but a tether. So the Spider-Verse is not simply a collection of many Spider-Men. It is a constellation of responsibilities, countless variations on the same promise, spread across worlds that are different yet deeply the same. Every world has its quiet corners, the places where shadows gather, where intention crystallizes, where the true nature of its inhabitants is revealed. In Spider-Man's universe, these domains are more than layers or laboratories. They are the physical embodiments of the minds that built them. To wander through these spaces is to enter the inner landscapes of his greatest adversaries and the deepest fractures of his own heart. We begin with Norman Osborn, the Green Goblin, whose presence clings to the air like cold metal. His stronghold is not a hideout. It is a corporate fortress forged from steel, glass, and ambition. Every surface is polished to a surgical shine, reflecting back the distorted image of a man who once believed he deserved to rule everything he touched. Rows of screens flicker with streams of data, and weapon racks line the walls like ceremonial armor. Each gadget, each blade, each glider wing hangs with a precision that borders on obsession. This is not the chaos of a madman. It is the order of someone who believes madness is another form of power. The deeper you move into the room, the more the architecture tightens around you. The walls feel as if they're listening. The air hums with a tension that never resolves. This is where Norman stares into the green glow of his own reflection, seeing Spider-Man not as an enemy, but as a rival carved from the same raw material. A mirrored destiny he intends to break, reshape, and control. In these metallic chambers, you can feel the tug of war between genius and insanity, as if the very floor vibrates with the strain of containing him. Then, there is the laboratory of Dr. Otto Octavius, a sanctuary of intellect unbound. Arms of gleaming steel hang from the ceiling like predatory vines. Half-finished machines rest on workbenches, each one intricate, each one dangerous, each one built from a mind that no longer cares for moral limits. Circuit boards glow with faint blue pulses, and sketches litter the walls, equations twisted into spirals, diagrams layered with conflicting objectives. Step closer and you notice the screens. Dozens of them. Some display research. Others show nothing but static. And only a few, show fragments of Otto himself. His face, duplicated, fractured, rearranged. It is as if the lab is a cathedral dedicated to intellect without conscience, a place where Otto seeks not discovery, but vindication. In the hum of machines, you can almost hear the silent declaration, "I will be superior." But the world of Spider-Man holds darker spaces still, places not forged by villains, but by memory. A narrow alley where a young Peter Parker once stepped aside, letting a thief escape. The shadows there carry the echo of a single gunshot, the moment that carved a permanent scar in his soul. A bridge illuminated by pale moonlight, where Gwen Stacy's name is etched into the stone of his heart. And rooftops, quiet, wind-touched, endless, where Peter often stands alone, gazing over the city that both gives and takes from him. These are not merely locations. They are emotional landmarks, a psychological map of a life defined by responsibility, its triumphs, its losses, its impossible choices. Each corner holds a memory. Each step carries a cost. And in these places, Peter is reminded of a truth he can never escape. Every hero is shaped not only by the enemies they fight, but by the shadows they carry within. Before you can understand the Spider-Verse, you must understand the anchor that holds so many of its threads together, Peter Parker. In the web of life and destiny, he is not simply another Spider-Person. He is a pillar, a stabilizing knot that keeps countless realities aligned. Yet if you look closely, you'll find that the strength of this pillar does not come from his powers. It comes from something far more fragile and far more human. Peter's story begins with a fracture, the kind of break that echoes across a lifetime. Uncle Ben's death was not just a tragedy. It was the spark that burned away Peter's innocence, leaving behind a wound that never truly heals. From that wound grew a silent vow, a path he never meant to walk, but could no longer ignore. Guilt became the lock, responsibility the key, and sacrifice the door he must pass through again and again. The spider totem chose many champions across the multiverse, but Peter was shaped not by destiny, nor prophecy, but by a moment of hesitation. One tiny decision that changed everything. That single lapse became his compass, pointing him toward a truth he carries like a whispered burden. If I don't act, someone else will suffer. This is the essence of Peter Parker. Not webs, or walls, or heightened senses, but the knowledge that every choice has a cost. And in his world, he pays that cost constantly. His victories are never clean. For every life he saves, something slips from his grasp. Time, stability, relationships, sleep. This rhythm of gain and loss is so consistent it has earned its own name, the Parker Luck, a cosmic balancing act where Peter can never hold too much joy without something unraveling. It is not cruelty. It is a reminder from the universe that power, no matter how great, cannot rewrite the human condition. Even with all his gifts, Peter remains painfully mortal. Rent is overdue. Homework is unfinished. Alarms are slept through. Apologies pile up. Life pulls him in one direction, while responsibility pulls him in another, leaving him stretched thin like the webs he swings from. At times, the two identities, Peter Parker and Spider-Man, feel like parallel lines, close enough to touch, but destined never to meet cleanly. This tension shapes him more than any villain ever could. His powers elevate him above the city, but his fears pull him back to the ground. He worries constantly, if I stop even for a moment, who pays the price? That fear is not cowardice, it is clarity, the clarity of someone who has already lived through the worst consequences of inaction. And so Peter continues, not because he was chosen, not because he welcomes the role, but because he cannot look away. The weight he carries is heavy, but he shoulders it with a quiet resilience that defines him. Peter Parker does not become Spider-Man out of destiny, but out of unwillingness to repeat a single irreversible mistake. And that, more than any power, is what makes him the heart of this universe. Across the vast lattice of the Spider-Verse, every shining thread carries a different story, a different life, a different version of what it means to wear the mask. And yet, no matter how far these worlds drift from one another, each spider person shares the same quiet pulse at their core, a willingness to sacrifice, a rhythm of responsibility that echoes across dimensions. They are variations of a single truth that courage can take infinite forms. To understand the Spider-Verse is to walk among these lives gently, as though stepping through a hall of mirrors, where each reflection shows a different possibility. We begin with Miles Morales, the heir to a new chapter of the myth. Unlike Peter, whose journey is rooted in guilt, Miles moves from empathy and conscious choice. He is not driven by a past mistake, but by a desire to protect the people he loves and the community that shaped him. His powers, Venom Blast and Camouflage, are more than abilities. They are manifestations of his identity, fluid and evolving, blending cultures and influences into something beautifully his own. Miles stands as proof of a simple, liberating truth. Anyone can wear the mask, and in that inclusivity, the Spider-Verse breathes. Then there is Ben Reilly, a clone carrying Peter Parker's memories, yet walking a life that will never truly belong to him. For Ben, identity is not a clear line, but a battlefield of echoes. Who is he? Peter's shadow, or his own person? He embodies a unique sorrow, a double-edged loneliness. He remembers being Peter, yet is constantly reminded that he never will be. Ben reveals another facet of the spider essence, the resilience to build meaning even when your story begins as someone else's. Kane Parker, the flawed clone, represents an even darker branch of the web. Born of error and mutation, he carries power that surpasses Peter's but is haunted by a body and mind shaped by instability. Cain is a warning of what happens when the spider totem's gifts are left unchecked, when instinct eclipses morality. Yet beneath the brutality lies a fragile yearning to belong, to be more than the sum of broken pieces. Cain shows that even the darkest version of Spider-Man contains a spark of humanity fighting to survive. But the Spider-Verse stretches wider still. In the noir universe, Spider-Man walks through rain-slick alleys where neon lights flicker like dying promises. He is a specter, a voice in the dark, battling corruption so deeply rooted it stains the sky itself. Gwen Stacy, in her world, becomes the Spider-Woman forged in guilt and redemption. Each swing through her city is a chapter in her ongoing conversation with loss, her father, her friends, her own mistakes. In 2099, the distant future collapses under metal and neon, and Spider-Man emerges sharper, faster, adapting to a world where humanity is nearly forgotten. And far across the web, Penny Parker pilots a biomechanical spider suit, her connection to the spider totem filtered through circuits and code, an intersection of emotion and machine. Together, they form a constellation of possibilities. The Spider-Verse is not a collection of masked heroes. It is a living archive of choices, sacrifices, and hopes. It proves that Spider-Man is not a name, but a principle, one that repeats itself across worlds, reshaping to fit the needs of each reality. No matter the form, the mask is always worn by someone willing to rise. In the world of Spider-Man, villains are never just obstacles, they are reflections. Dark, warped, exaggerated versions of what Peter Parker might have become if a few choices had bent in the wrong direction. To understand Peter fully, you must look into these mirrors, each one shaped from a different fragment of his fears, flaws, and potential futures. These adversaries are not distant forces. They are the shadows cast by his own light. We begin with Norman Osborn, the embodiment of power without restraint. In him, you see the Peter that might have been if ambition drowned compassion, if intellect were sharpened into a blade instead of tempered into empathy. Norman's tower, cold and metallic, stands like a monument to control. Every ceiling light, every steel surface, every precisely aligned weapon, revealing his obsession with dominion. To Norman, Spider-Man is not an enemy. He is a rival blueprint, a version of the sun Norman believes he deserves, reshaped by force rather than love. His madness is methodical, built on the belief that greatness is earned through domination. In many ways, Norman is not hunting Spider-Man. He is hunting the idea that someone so small, so humble, could surpass him. Then there is Dr. Otto Octavius, intellect without conscience. If Norman represents corrupted ambition, Octavius represents corrupted brilliance. He is a genius who lost sight of humanity, first in others, then in himself. His fall was not sudden, it was a slow erosion of humility. The same sharp mind that could have been a mentor to Peter instead calcified into arrogance. When Otto becomes the superior Spider-Man, living within Peter's body, he proves a chilling point. Power and intelligence alone do not create a hero. What Otto lacks is the fragile, immeasurable quality Peter carries so naturally: humanity, the capacity to care. Otto shows us the Spider-Man who could have existed if Peter had valued efficiency over empathy, victory over compassion. And then comes Venom, the reflection Peter never wanted to see. Venom is not an enemy born from ideology or science. He is the physical manifestation of Peter's rejected impulses: rage, ego, the intoxicating desire to let instinct override restraint. The symbiote once amplified Peter's strength, whispered to him, tempted him with freedom from guilt and limitation. When Peter pushed it away, it found Eddie Brock, a man whose anger aligned perfectly with its hunger. Together they formed a being who knows Peter's heart better than almost anyone. Venom is the lingering question Peter cannot silence. What if I stopped holding back? What if I let the spider, not the man, decide who I am? But the shadows stretch further still. Sandman, whose tragic mistakes are stained with lingering kindness. Lizard, the scientist consumed by his own creation. Mysterio, a master of illusions, living proof that fear is often crafted from the fragile corners of the mind. Each of them embodies a lesson, a warning, a path Peter could follow if he surrendered even a piece of himself. They are not only foes, they are forks in the road of his identity. And in facing them, Peter is reminded again and again, a hero is defined not by the powers he possesses, but by the parts of himself he refuses to abandon. Across the endless strands of the Spider-Verse, there exists a law more persistent than gravity, more binding than destiny. It is not written in ancient texts or carved into celestial stone. It lives quietly, pulsing through every spider person who has ever worn the mask. The cycle is simple, almost deceptively so: guilt, responsibility, sacrifice. And yet, this gentle, relentless rotation shapes every version of Spider-Man, from the smallest neighborhood hero to the cosmic guardians, woven into the deepest corners of the multiverse. It begins with guilt, the emotional fracture that marks the true birth of every spider person. Something irreversible happens, something that steals a piece of their innocence and replaces it with a weight they can never set down again. For Peter Parker, it was Uncle Ben's death, the result of a choice he didn't make quickly enough. For Gwen Stacy of Another World, it was losing her father, a wound that reshaped her understanding of justice. For Miles Morales, the guilt carries a different flavor: the shock of witnessing Spider-Man fall in his own universe, a reminder that even heroes can crumble, that even legends can vanish. This guilt is not a punishment, it is a doorway. Through it comes the second phase: responsibility. This is the moment each spider person realizes that power does not wait for certainty, and heroism does not ask whether they are ready. The world presents a simple, unyielding question: if not you, then who? And in that quiet, trembling space between fear and courage, they understand that stepping forward is the only possible answer. Responsibility becomes their anchor to the web of life, a silent vow that binds them to every other spider person who has ever made the same choice. But responsibility alone is not enough. It inevitably leads to the final, most defining phase of the cycle: sacrifice. In the world of Spider-Man, saving someone is never free. Each rescue, each victory, each moment of bravery pulls a small thread loose from their personal life. They lose time, relationships, comfort, safety, Sacrifice comes not as a dramatic flourish, but as a slow erosion, like a thin strand of web stretched tighter and tighter over years. Sometimes it snaps in a single painful moment. Other times, it frays silently in the background of their days. This cycle repeats so consistently that it becomes the very blueprint of the Spider-Man identity. No spider person is chosen by fate or anointing. They simply reach a point where stepping away would cause more pain than stepping forward. They do not rise because they are destined. They rise because they cannot bear the alternative. And with each full turn of the cycle, a spider person grows wiser, more resilient, more attuned to the balance of the web. But they also grow more solitary. Their victories elevate them, yet the sacrifices chip away at pieces of the life they once knew. It is a paradox woven deep into the Spider-Verse. Every time they save someone, they lose a part of themselves. And still, they continue, because the cycle does not break, it only deepens. To understand the Spider-Verse is to imagine a vast, shimmering network stretching across dimensions, a living architecture of threads, each one humming softly with purpose. This is the web of life and destiny, the metaphysical structure that binds every spider person into a single, interconnected consciousness. It is not merely a map of realities. It is a nervous system, a cosmic mind, a quiet pulse that spans worlds where the same mask is worn by different faces, different hearts, different versions of courage. Every spider person is an avatar of the spider totem, the ancient essence behind the mask. But the totem is not a generous deity. It does not choose champions out of kindness. It demands them. Those who carry its mark are tied to a role from which they can never fully escape. Even if they set aside the suit, even if they deny the call, the web still tugs at them, gently but persistently, reminding them of who they are meant to be. Within this totemic ecosystem are several forces, some nurturing, some terrifying, all essential. The other is the deepest, darkest layer of the totem, the primal instinct, the predator beneath the hero. It is everything that Spider-Man could become if he surrendered to the hunger, the aggression, the raw animal power inside the spider essence. It sleeps within every spider person, a shadow waiting at the edge of identity. The master weaver is the keeper of balance, the one who shapes the patterns of fate and maintains the rhythm of the web. Like a cosmic artisan, the weaver decides how each thread should bend, break, or branch. Through him, destinies are woven, not as rigid paths, but as delicate patterns that respond to the choices spider people make. And flowing through all of them is the spider essence, the subtle energy that connects each avatar to the next. When one spider person leaps into danger, another somewhere across the multiverse feels a faint stirring in their chest, a reminder that they are never truly alone. But the web does not survive on connection alone. It also relies on correction, sometimes brutal, sometimes merciless. That is the role of the inheritors, the predators who stalk the strands, hunting spider totems with a ruthless purpose. They are not villains in the traditional sense. They are a mechanism, a cosmic reset button. When the web grows unstable, or when a particular thread begins to warp the balance, the inheritors rise to trim the weak or the overextended. Their presence is a warning. The power given to a spider person is not a blessing, but a debt, and all debts must eventually be paid. The laws of the web are simple, yet impossibly heavy. Every spider person has a breaking point, a moment predetermined by the web's design. No Spider-Man, no matter how strong, how skilled, how beloved, is permanent. Only the web endures. And when one strand snaps, another trembles in response, awakening somewhere else in the multiverse, ready to step into the empty space. This is the rhythm of the Spider-Verse, an unending dance between duty and destiny, between the threads that hold the universe together and the fragile hearts bound to follow their pull. Across more than 6 decades, Spider-Man has never remained still. He grows, collapses, transforms, and rises again, each era peeling back a new layer of what it means to be human beneath the mask. And though these reinventions span generations, mediums, and artistic philosophies, they all circle the same quiet truth. Spider-Man changes because the world changes, and the world needs him in different ways at different times. We begin with the Ditko era, where the foundations of Spider-Man were carved with angular strokes and stark shadows. This was the Spider-Man of isolation, of a young boy too small for the world that towered above him. The art reflected his emotional landscape, sharp, cramped, full of tension. Morality was drawn in bold contrasts, black against white, certainty against hesitation. Peter was not yet the polished hero we know. He was awkward, anxious, often misunderstood, and that was the magic. He felt real. In an age of perfect heroes, Spider-Man was the first to show us that loneliness could exist inside the mask just as powerfully as bravery. Then came the Straczynski JMS era, pulling the mythos inward, downward, into the realm of mysticism. Science gave way to destiny. The spider totem emerged, suggesting that Peter had not been bitten by chance, but chosen by something older and deeper. The world expanded into a quiet mythology. Threads of fate, visions of primal spiders, whispers of inevitability. In this era, Spider-Man became more than a kid with powers. He became a symbol standing at the intersection of instinct and responsibility. His strength was not just physical, it was spiritual. His story, not just heroic, it became cosmic. From there, the myth burst outward into the Spider-Verse era, where Spider-Man stopped being a singular figure and became a pattern, an idea repeating across countless worlds. Noir detectives, cyberpunk rebels, drummers, children, scientists, ghosts of timelines that never happened. The mask became a universal constant, a shape carved into the fabric of the multiverse. And with that expansion came a new question, one whispered through every reality. What makes someone worthy of the mask? Strength, pain, choice, or something simpler, an unshakable instinct to do what is right, no matter the cost. And finally, the current age, the era of Miles Morales, a Spider-Man shaped not by guilt, but by empathy, not chained to the past, but hopeful for the future. Miles stands at the crossroads of cultures, generations, and identities. His powers shimmer with innovation. Venom blasts, camouflage, energy that feels alive. His voice is new, but his heart carries the same steady pulse as every spider person before him. He reminds us that the mask is not an inheritance. It is an invitation, an opportunity to rise, even when the world does not expect you to. And so, across eras, one thing remains unchanged. Spider-Man is always an ordinary person who chooses to stand up because no one else can. This is why he survives, why he endures, why he continues to evolve with every generation. because Spider-Man isn't set a character. He is a reflection, reshaping himself to match the world that needs him. To breathe with me. Before we take another step deeper into the Spider-Verse, I want you to rest for a moment. Inhale, to let the world of Spider-Man soften into a place where your mind can drift freely, light, suspended, unbound. So gently, let that sensation rise through you. Breathe in deeply, as though drawing the cool night air of New York into your lungs. Imagine yourself hanging weightlessly between two tall buildings, the wind brushing past your shoulders, carrying the faint smell of rain and concrete. Feel the steadiness of the line beneath your palms, thin as silk, strong as steel. Now, quiet, focused, present. Hold that breath. In this suspended second, every choice feels vivid. Every path hums with possibility. Sense the stillness that lives in that pause. The same stillness Spider-Man feels each time he balances on a rooftop edge, surveying the city below. Let the moment stretch. You are standing in the space between action and destiny, between fear and courage, the same space where every spider person must decide who they will become. Feel the gentle vibration under your fingertips, as if a decision somewhere far away has just been made and its echo is reaching you now. Imagine the web of life stretching out around you, glowing threads extending into countless universes, some bright, some dim, each one a story marked by sacrifice, by loss, by hope. And now, slowly, hold on to that feeling, the sensitivity, the awareness, the calm anticipation. Release the tension in your shoulders. Let the breath flow out like a soft unraveling. Exhale. Release the weight you didn't realize you were carrying. Imagine that all the responsibilities pressing on your chest drift outward, dissolving into the night air, just as Spider-Man lets go of his fear before taking another leap into the unknown. With each breath out, allow the city around you to fade into quiet. Let the lights dim into gentle embers. Let the sirens soften into distant murmurs. Let the endless demands of the world shrink into something manageable, something small enough to rest beside, not run from. In the quiet after our journey, one thought lingers gently. Perhaps Spider-Man was never chosen because of his strength, but because he never ran from the weight of it. Courage, not power, is what shaped him. And as you rest tonight, let that idea settle softly within you. Thank you for walking beside me across the cold rooftops of New York and through the faint, shimmering threads of the Spider-Verse. If a single strand inside you trembles tonight, maybe it's the web of life whispering that responsibility and kindness are their own forms of superpower.